Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus arcade video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Marvel Vs Capcom 2 on the Sega Naomi. Now, since this is a cartridge, it doesn't actually have the dim board attached. It's just the Marvel Vs Capcom 2 cartridge in the system. And if we see here, go down to Game Test Mode. It's going to load the test mode. Takes a little while. There it goes. And now the most important thing here, since this game actually uses 6 buttons, where I don't think any other game that I own uses 6 buttons, is to make sure all the buttons are working. So, of course, our joystick, it makes the zeros turn into ones. And then, of course, 4 shots here, 2 shots there. And let me show you really quick how I actually achieve this. And as opposed to what a lot of people think, you do not need the Capcom I/O board for this. I'm actually still using the standard Sega JAMA converter. So let me just take the camera off the tripod for a second here, and I'll show you what's going on over here. Now what you'll see is there's the I/O board. Now first of all, there's this wire coming off of the JAMA harness, which is, when I press the button, it's shot 5, but it's actually fierce kick, or roundhouse as they tend to call it. And then you'll see this here. This is the auxiliary thing here, which gives you your button 6, 7, and 8, I believe. The white wire, which is on the first pin of this adapter, is going to one of the connectors on the Neo Geo controller, which gives me my button 6, which I've actually wired up to start. Now, since my Neo Geo controller here only has 6 buttons, I've wired jab, fierce punch, I think they call it short, and then roundhouse. And then I've done assist 1 and assist 2. Now, in order to actually start the game, I have to take this wire here, which is start, and touch it to one of these ground points, which, if you see on the screen there, makes start happen. Now, if I was running the Japanese BIOS, I could just easily connect the Dreamcast controller, but I figure I will run this game with the American BIOS, so all the character names will be proper to what everyone knows them outside Japan. So I'll turn the light off because it's going to make the screen be too glared, and I'll go ahead and get out of test mode here. And if you saw a bit of a cut there, a bit of a jump cut, I actually had accidentally pressed the button on the camera as I was talking, so I kind of had to like say something again and then splice the footage together. But let's get right into this. And now, instead of showing you the intro on this screen, because as you'd seen in my new pickups video, I had, there was a problem with the LCD LED monitor where it couldn't track the characters flying across it quick enough. Right now, I'm going to just splice right in footage of the CRT monitor to show you how much more smooth it is. And then once I get out of that footage, I'm going to just splice right back into the footage you're seeing right now. So, right now you'll see the intro on the CRT, and then we'll go back to what I'm doing right now.
Capcom presents Marvel Vs Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes.
Okay, and as you can see, the footage was a bit smoother on the CRT. It might not show up on the camera as well, but just trust me, on the LCD LED, it's just like the response time has trouble just keeping up with the characters flying across the screen. but on the CRT it looks fine. But regardless of what screen I use, the gameplay looks perfect. And of course, as I had mentioned in other videos, the camera just has an easier time focusing on the LED LCD screen, which is what you're seeing the game running on right now. And of course, this game runs on the Sega Naomi hardware. I'm currently running it on my Naomi 2. This game was released in 2000 by Capcom on the Sega Naomi hardware. And of course, I can really say without really saying anything at all, this is really an excellent game. There's really not much more I can say singing the praises of this game. It's an excellent 3 vs 3 fighting game with quite a variety of characters. Here I've selected BB Hood, Sakura, and Akuma, who of course if I was running with the Japanese BIOS would be Boletta, Sakura, and Goki, respectively. And what I've done with Sakura, if you notice, her skin got a little darker. It's the Dark Sakura transformation. So then when I end up doing the super move, all 3 characters here will end up doing a projectile. And if the enemy's close enough, it actually has gotten up to like 80-some hits, I believe. I don't remember the exact number, but a really good combination, so that's why I tend to use these characters a lot. And of course, since I pushed the light punch, the jab button, it gave them all their default costumes. In part 2 of this video, I will have a bunch of different characters and show you what happens if you use the assist button and you end up getting the alternate character costumes. Which, if you're wondering the way that I end up getting these all the characters unlocked, is when you're on the game configuration screen, you enter a series of operator commands with the controls, which even if I was using the Dreamcast controller on the Japanese BIOS, I would actually need to hook up the controls as I have them, because I need to actually input these codes on the actual JAMA controls. They can't be inputted on the Dreamcast controller and still work. For the American version, there are the USA BIOS, there are 4 codes you have to input to get up to level 84, whereas with the Japanese BIOS, there's only 3 codes, and that gets you up to your maximum level with all characters and all alternate costumes, which is that gold frame you see around all the character slots. Now this game got a ton of ports. I'm gonna just run by them really quick here. The first port, of course, was in Japan for the Sega Dreamcast, March 30th of 2000. Then, June 29th of 2000 got the USA Dreamcast version, followed by July 16th of 2000 for the European Dreamcast version. Now, as far as the PS2 versions go, it looks like... Okay, it's not telling me here exactly. Oh, there it is. I see it. The Japanese version of the PlayStation 2 version got released on September 19th of 2002, and it was also released as a with modem patch, which was kind of sad that a lot of these games actually got online play in Japan, but in America, they cut all that out because we can't just have the cool stuff like they do. The next port you would have is in Japan, September 19th of 2002, you also got the Xbox version, followed by the Xbox version in Europe, November 29th of 2002. Although it has these a little bit out of order. November 18th of 2002 is the US PlayStation 2 version. And of course, November 29th of 2002 is the European PlayStation 2 version. That's one thing I find a little bit weird. When Rogue gets defeated, she kind of sounds like Cammy. I don't know why. But where was I here? You have to wait all the way until March 27th of 2003 to finally get the Xbox version in the United States. Which seems kind of weird that an American game console, the USA version of a game wouldn't come out on it until like much later. Now, of course, there were the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 ports. In all three regions, July 29th of 2009, you got the Xbox 360 version. In the USA, you waited until August 13th of 2009. And, well, that was for the PlayStation 3. And then, apparently, Japan was the same day. But, another one that also was available was the iPod/iPhone version on April 25th of 2012. Although I will honestly go on record in saying that the Sega Naomi version, without the shadow of a doubt, considering even the Dreamcast version, it's pretty close to arcade perfect. It's just not as, like, let's say, smooth as the arcade version, and it's not as perfect, but it's still a perfect version. But I would go as far as to say the Sega Naomi version and the Dreamcast versions are the two best versions of this game. And this, in my opinion, is the absolute pinnacle of 2D fighting games. You can take your Marvel Vs Capcom 3, it really doesn't get all that better than this. Because the biggest problem is, in my opinion, when they go from this masterpiece of a game and they went to Marvel Vs Capcom 3, they basically should have started out with the character roster you had here, and then just added from there. I know it involves, like, making all brand new characters for your, like, pseudo 3D version in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but honestly, they should have just taken the time to do it. Forget about making your ultimate versions later, which really weren't all that ultimate, as they didn't add all the missing characters, and just make the game. Take your time and do it, but... And another quick note here is, instead of being M. Bison, if this were the Japanese version, this would have been Vega instead of M. Bison. And that's another thing I really loved about this game. The sprites look nice and crisp, and the backgrounds are nice 3D backgrounds. They're really good looking together. And the cool thing about Sakura is she'll get the straight Hadouken, and then she'll get kind of like this like sweeping Shoryuken uppercut when she does the dark transformation, which takes a couple of power levels, but it's still actually a really good thing to do. And if you really want to, as I had mentioned earlier, if you really want to get a good combo going, then using Dark Sakura instead of regular Sakura is the best way to do it. And I will honestly go on the record right now in saying that I really learned a lot of Bolletta's moves by actually, well, BB Hood here. I call her Bolletta since I'm just so used to doing it, but I learned a lot of her moves by actually playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 when I got this cart. And the cool thing is that actually led to me actually, for the first time, beating Vampire Savior on the Sega Saturn with her and seeing one of the endings. Of course, I couldn't actually read what it said because it's a Japanese game that's all in Japanese, but it was just cool to learn the character a bit better and be able to get through that game. And just like I had mentioned in some other games, this is another one of those characters that they just honestly made humongous. Juggernaut, basically when you fight him, he just seems like he could totally kill you if he landed on you or if he punched you with his humongous fists, which are bigger than most people's heads in this game, if you noticed. And whenever I see Magneto, I always think of that part in the X-Men arcade game where he just goes, "Welcome to die." It's just one of those things, like, ever since I had seen that for the first time when I was young, it's just a thing that I always think of when I think of Magneto. If you listen very carefully between my bits of commentary here, you can hear me terribly, like, bashing on that poor Neo Geo controller. Because a lot of times here, I'm like desperately trying to get a move off. Because I can honestly tell you, I was surprised at how close some of these matches were. The only thing I really did here was I slowed down the timer because I just really got annoyed at running out of time all the time because I just wanted to actually finish the match and not win by default, because it's not really all that much fun to win by default when you actually could win by winning, you know, beating the other character. And that's one thing I like about BB Hood / Boletta. I just like her innocence, and then she has all these like weapons under her cape and everything. It's just one of those really cool things that like entertains me about the character. And now Captain Commando here is one of those characters that I hadn't actually had much experience with until I actually played the arcade version in main, which, if you are like a long-time watcher of this channel, that actually was one of my main review requests. So, in other words, it probably wouldn't have been a game I would have played unless somebody on this particular channel had requested it. So I very much thank you for doing that. And of course, it goes without saying, if you have any main games you want reviewed, just send me a personal message. And this is another one of those cool stages. If you look in the background, which isn't really something that you can do when you're playing the game, it makes it look like the actual fighting platform is floating through the all the ice around it. It's a really cool effect when you look at it. And when I see Captain America here, since like the Captain America movies have actually been so popular since this game came out, I just think he looks so silly by comparison to the movie character because he's like so animated. But you know, he was the cartoon / comic book version. And that's one thing I definitely have to say about the Capcom characters. I like their like overly animated Street Fighter Alpha versions. Although don't get me wrong, I do like the original like Street Fighter / Super Street Fighter 2, who are like not as anime-esque, but they're still as like cartoony and everything. But it's definitely cool to see these like Street Fighter Alpha type versions of the characters. And in fact, I wouldn't really mind if they even made another Street Fighter Alpha game. I like the characters; they look so well. But if they were to do such a thing, I'd want them to keep it as 2D, not try to do any of that 2.5D crap. Because we really don't need non-sprite-based fighting games. If you're gonna do it like a 2D fighting game, you might as well actually keep it a 2D fighting game. I just thought that was one of the best knockouts I'd ever done. It's like Ken is about to do his like super move, and then all of a sudden I tag in Akuma and he just kicks him and he dies. It's kind of like some of the characters from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I forget what character it was, but there's one that like is about to do his like super punch, and you just have to, I forget if it's you have to either punch him or do one of those star punches to him, and that just knocks him to the ground. That's what it made me think of. And one of the most annoying things about Captain Commando is he'll do that Captain Fire move almost more obnoxiously than Ryu did Hadouken in some of the earlier Street Fighter games. So he really gets on my nerves when I'm actually playing this against Captain Commando. But at least it's not nearly as bad as Jill Valentine, who actually throws all the zombies and everything at you. And I just find that character to be very cheap, but not nearly as bad as Captain Commando with his Captain Fire. And if you notice when he did a super move there, he summoned all the other Captain Commando characters, if you remember from that main review I did. But yeah, there he goes with more Captain Fire. But yeah, this is definitely an excellent game. If you're an arcade collector, even though this cartridge can like command a very high price, I would highly recommend picking this up if you can get your hands on it. And of course, if you can't, then the Dreamcast version, especially the American version, since you could unlock all the characters, is definitely worth it. Well, I'll see you in part 2 for the rest of this playthrough, and I shall see you later. Bye.
You win.